Okay, well, happy summer, everyone, and welcome to the American Cetacean Society San Francisco Bay Chapter's June 2025 speaker event. I'm Susan Hopp, board member responsible for our speaker program. So first, for anyone new to the American Cetacean Society, we are a chapter within a national organization that is the oldest nonprofit dedicated to the protection of whales, dolphins, porpoises, and their habitat. And we do this through education, community engagement, and awarding grants towards cetacean research. And we appreciate your donations in support of our mission. Donations fund our research grants and expenses for these talks. And it's easy to donate on our website if you haven't at the time of registration. And tonight you will see some of the fruits of those donations with our speaker, who is one of the 2024 Izzy Shaponiak Research Award grantees. So we are recording tonight's presentation, and please put your questions in the Q&A. That's actually better than the chat, and I will field them after the presentation. So this evening, we turn our attention to the leviathans of our seas, really of our planet, the blue whale. And leading our discussion is newly minted official marine mammal biologist Jessie Meyer, who will share his examination and analysis of the body condition of eastern North Pacific blue whales across a 32-year time span between 1991 and 2023. So a bit about Jessie. Jessie Meyer's pull of marine and cetacean science began as a child when first witnessing wild dolphins off the coast of California while on a family vacation. And although growing up in Bethesda, Maryland, his memories of that California day were the seeds of a driving curiosity to understand marine mammals and their perception of the world they inhabit. His pursuit of education in marine science and ecology led him to pursue first a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Studies at St. Lawrence University, and then a master's in marine mammal science from the University of Miami. And currently, Jessie is a research associate at Cascadia Research in Washington State and lives in Seattle. So Jessie, it's really thrilling to have you here and to have you share with us your research. So I hand it over to you.
Great. Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk to everyone today about this project that I've been working on for about the past year or so, looking at the body condition of Eastern North Pacific blue whales across this 32-year time span from the early 1990s to 2023, and then exploring some of those links to environmental drivers. I also want to thank my co-authors, John Kalambokidis, Rachel Walkendonk, who is did the initial study in 2022 upon which we based this one, Georgina Whitome, who helped with the survival analysis that I'll touch on a bit later, and then my advisors from the University of Miami, Dr. Holly Escalinen and Dr. Maria Cardellano. So just to share a bit more about me and my journey into marine mammal science. So we touched a little bit on that in the intro, but I grew up on the East Coast. I live on the West Coast now, but in Bethesda, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. And my initial interest in marine science was sort of piqued with visits to the National Aquarium in Baltimore, which I have a picture of here, and seeing some of these, seeing this marine life in these exhibits, I really just brought on this interest in marine science. And I remember seeing the dolphins that were in captivity there, and I was just completely captivated. And I really wanted to learn more about marine mammals, especially. And it was that first time of seeing them in the wild that I knew for sure that I wanted to study them and wanted this to be my career. And then I was also really inspired by my mom. And when she was in undergrad, she had the opportunity to work for a summer in Maine doing photo ID of humpback whales. And hearing some of those stories was really inspiring. And she then uh, her career then was focused on environmental disaster response. So she's worked for the EPA and now works for the U.S. Coast Guard, doing that and pursuing her passion to save the environment. So I just wanted to give her a shout out, and I have a picture of her down here. So I went to school went to undergrad in upstate New York, so a little bit far from the ocean. So I kind of had to make some experiences during the summer where I could get out on the water or get out and do some more marine mammal focused work. So the summer of my freshman year, I interned with the Marine Mammal Commission and looked at marine mammal bycatch and fisheries, particularly focusing on vaquita bycatch in Mexico, and then sort of expanding my analysis from there. And this was a really great experience just to get familiar with marine mammal science and understand some of the different aspects that go into research, and really just become familiar with the research process and get to know some of the names of the people who I may be working with in the future. Uh, and while this was really interesting and I had a great experience, I was pretty eager to get out into the field and to be studying these animals in the environment in which they live. So the following summer, I was able to get an internship working with Cape May Whale Watch and Research Center, and assisting in some of the photo identification work that they do over there with bottlenose dolphins and humpback whales. And spending time on the water almost every day, I knew for sure. I already said I knew for sure, but I definitely at this point I was like, okay, this is something I want to do. I'm out here every day, most days on the water, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm still having fun. So that was a really formative experience. And the other thing that was really awesome about that is this population of bottlenose dolphins that goes between the coast of Cape May and then down to the Carolinas. It's these same individuals that you're seeing every single day. And so by the time I was finished with this internship, there was a few individuals that I knew by name, and I would see them over and over again. And you start to just understand a little bit more about their behavior. And the more you get to know, the more questions you have. So I was able to do that for, I think, 2 summers. And I graduated from St. Lawrence University in May of 2020 with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Studies and Biology. And during my senior year there, I had the opportunity to do a senior research project looking at bacteria and protists in Adirondack lakes and bogs. So not quite the ocean, but I still made sure to pursue this freshwater ecology, and got to get out in the field a lot, which was really, really awesome. And so I have a picture here of me sampling a bog, and we wanted to see if there is any difference in the microbial communities of these bogs in the Adirondacks that don't have any fish compared to some of the lakes in the Adirondacks that have fish. And so that was just more great field experience of getting out and getting to sort of form my own research question and follow the whole process of completing a research project. So uh, after I finished up at St. Lawrence, I then did an internship with the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program in San Diego. And this was a bit more focused on the animal care and behavior side of marine mammal science. So as interns, we would assist with the daily care and training of both California sea lions and bottlenose dolphins. Uh, and I got to see a bit of the research side of this as well, because I spent the first half working on the research doc and uh, getting to help train some of these behaviors that the animals perform as part of research projects. And they do a lot of really cool work with acoustics there. And so that was kind of interesting to again see a different part of marine mammal science. So after that, I was already planning on moving up to the Northwest with some buddies. So I made my way up here and spent a little bit of time working in a ski shop. And then that summer, I worked as a kayak guide for the same company. And then a bit later that summer, I got the opportunity to head up to Alaska. And so I have that picture here on the bottom left, and that was pretty much my office almost every day when I was there. So we would go out to the misty fjords, and I would talk about geology and talk about some of the wildlife we would see. And we would often see orcas and humpbacks, bald eagles, and sometimes bears. And so that was, again, just really great experience getting out in the water, getting to sort of enhance these skills of a naturalist and just being able to talk about the natural world and communicating science, which I think is one of the most important things that we can do as scientists, is then being able to come out and communicate our results. And so following that, I then spent a year with the Washington Conservation Corps, which, a slightly different path there, working more with these freshwater ecosystems, but I saw it all connecting in this larger scheme, because most of what we were doing was doing salmon habitat restoration. And as part of that, I got to do some spawning surveys and getting to see kokanee, which are salmon that essentially never go into the ocean, and getting to see this species in a stream for the first time in 40 years, and getting to help with a lot of restoration projects all over the state. And I became really, really familiar with the ecology and the plant life of Washington. And it was awesome just to get to be outside every single day and really get to learn the environment. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back to school. And so I applied and I got into grad school at the University of Miami and started there in the summer of 2023. So after 2 semesters of coursework, we then have an internship and we can go anywhere we want. And uh, I applied to Cascadia, and I feel really lucky that I got in. And we sort of slowly figured out this research project that I'm going to tell you all about today. And something that was really awesome when I talked to John is, I remember he asked me, do you want to get on the field? And I was like, yes, please. I really, really want to get out into the field. And so I was offered this amazing experience to go out with Cascadia for about 2 weeks, working in Southern California, where I got to actually see blue whales in the wild and help with some data collection and just get to work on a research vessel. I mean, that's the dream that everyone has, is to actually get to be out there working on a research vessel. And yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone that was there, and everyone was very, very welcoming to me, the newbie. Uh, and yeah, so I did that and then completed this project, and I graduated in December of 2024. And since then, we've slightly tweaked a few things and are excited to present our results. So before I kind of dive deeper into that, I'm just going to give you all a quick introduction on blue whales and talk about body condition and health assessments and why this is all important. Um, so the Eastern North Pacific blue whale population is estimated at just under 2,000 individuals, with a range north from the Gulf of Alaska down south to the Costa Rica Dome and the Gulf of California. So this stock is considered depleted and strategic under the U.S. Marine Mammal Protection Act, and considered endangered under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. So when we think about marine mammal health, and the reason that it is so important is the physiological and anatomical adaptations of marine mammals, which enable them to live in these aquatic environments, do also expose them to the variability and degradation of these marine ecosystems. So they are seen as ecosystem sentinels. So anything we can learn about their health is really important for the health of the ecosystem and is also applicable to humans as well. So thinking about blue whales and their behavior and uh, how they move around their world. Uh, they forage year round. However, their feeding is concentrated to the highly productive waters of this California current ecosystem from June to November. And non-invasive photographic assessments of body condition have been conducted in a few different species. Uh, North Atlantic right whales, gray whales, and then most recently in Eastern North Pacific blue whales, which is Rachel's study that we sort of based this study off of. And in that, she found that body condition was associated with environmental covariates, so the Pacific decadal oscillation and the length of the upwelling season. And despite their large size, these whales have a very highly energetic feeding mechanism, which limits their dive duration. And so if you think about it, if you're going out and you're seeking all this prey that's really, really tiny, you are going to need just dense accumulations of that prey to make this an energetically viable feeding strategy. And so, sort of linking that, if we think about large marine mammals' dependence on substantial energy stores, uh, blubber, so these whales need to feed a lot, they need to build up those energy stores. It's then possible that reduced body condition could be linked to reduced survival and reproduction. So, thinking about blue whale survival, in 2024, Georgina Whitome found a declining trend in survival in the Gulf of California. And we wanted to think a little bit more about the broader population across a larger area and the relationship between life history parameters and Eastern North Pacific blue whale body condition has not yet been explored. So we wanted to look a little bit further into that. So ultimately, we kind of had three main goals, which was to extend and incorporate the data set on body condition scores for whales that were included in Rachel's study from 2005 to 2018 by Cascadia Research Collective to those photographed in a few years during the 90s. So looking at some archival film images and then expanding that forward from 2005 to 2023. We then wanted to explore the links between body condition and the environmental indices of productivity using that broader data set than initially utilized. And then lastly, investigate indicators of a possible relationship between body condition and some life history trends. So looking at survival and then resighting rate as well. Okay, so how did we do it? Well, I have here the body condition scoring methodology that's outlined in Rachel's paper. And basically, there's four main categories, starting with 0. So that top picture on the right there. Uh, Essentially, we're looking for a whale that looks very round. There's no visible vertebrae. And the kind of ideal area that we want to look at is that red box when we're looking at an image. And then moving down to a score of 1 or moderately good body condition, we start to see that dorsal ridge visible with some possible evidence of vertebrae, but no real clear undulations. Moving down to a score of 2, we start to see a bit clearer undulations, but not super, super defined, and then an even more defined dorsal ridge. And then lastly, moving down to that category of 3, or the poor body condition, there's a very clearly defined dorsal ridge and just multiple vertebrae that are easily detectable. So for this study, as I mentioned, we scored both film and digital photographs. And then because there were two different raters, being Rachel and myself for this larger data set, we wanted to ensure that our scores could be grouped together. And so we assessed inter-rater reliability using a weighted kappa coefficient. And we also filtered out poor quality data. So in addition to scoring body condition, we also scored quality of photograph and then the proportion seen. And so if the ranging from a score of 1, which is good, to a score of 3, which was poor. And so all those scores of 3 were filtered out of the data set. And this still resulted in 4,188 encounters of 1,319 different individuals. So we took all these body condition scores and grouped them by year, decade, geographic region, and season cited. And the geographic regions included Mexico, Southern California, Central California, Northern California, and the Pacific Northwest. And those were all binned by latitude. And for season, we defined the early season as January to May. And then we have June and July grouped together, August, September, and late season, which is October to December. So this is the inter-rater reliability assessment here. And we found that there was fair to good agreement between Rachel and myself for body condition scoring. And we looked at 90 images of blue whales. The percent agreement was around 63.33%. And this fair to good agreement between raters is consistent with reports of inter-rater reliability in the body condition scoring of other marine mammals. A study from 2012 reported fair to excellent agreement, or a similar range for the scoring of gray whales. So we felt pretty confident treating this entire data set as a whole. And we didn't necessarily see the skewing of scores in any particular way, otherwise saying that I didn't necessarily score everything a bit higher or a bit lower, and same with Rachel. So we felt that we could proceed with the analysis. So to explore these environmental variables and their impact on body condition, and then also looking at a few other variables that we thought could impact body condition, we use cumulative link mixed models and looked at lactation status, month of sighting, season of sighting, as I mentioned, the quality of photograph, the proportion seen of the photographs, and then with the year and individual ID as random effects in the model. And in total, we looked at 7 environmental drivers. So the Pacific decadal oscillation value, whether that value was positive or negative, the relative catch per unit effort of krill as a measure of blue whale prey, the biologically effective upwelling transport index as a measure of upwelling, the presence or absence of a heat wave that occurred in the region from 2014 to 2016, the oceanic Nino index as a measure of sort of longer term climatological cycles, and then the habitat compression index, which is essentially another measure of upwelling and suitable habitat availability. And to look at survival, we used Cormac Jolly Sieber open recapture models with right side images to avoid duplication. And based on some preliminary tests, we determined that these models should be fitted with trap dependence, transience, and over dispersion. And to keep it simple, this annual survival probability was modeled as a constant, which varied by the annual sampling occasion and varied as a linear trend over time. And we also modeled survival as 2 transience classes. And similarly, the probability of recapture was also allowed to differ with the same time variation. So as a constant varying by annual sampling occasion and as a linear trend over time. And the trap dependence effect was modeled as an individual time varying covariate. These models also allowed for both interactive and additive effects. And based on some more testing with the data set, we determined that we should use the small sample adaptation of the AIC, and which were then adjusted to quasi-AIC. For resighting rates, we use the last known sighting of a whale with its associated body condition score from 1991 until 2009, with the resight period from 2010 to 2023. And the resighting rate for each category from 0 to 3 was then estimated as the proportion of whales that were recited during that recite period, so 2010 to 2023, that were initially cited from 1991 to 2009. And for this, we excluded lactating females because Rachel's paper showed that lactating females were typically in much worse body condition. Okay, moving on to the exciting stuff. So this is kind of the broad, basically all the results summed into this one graph. So I'll dive a little bit deeper into kind of what this means. So all of the scores here are grouped within the categories. So with the black bars representing 0 or good body condition score, and then that really dark gray is the proportion of whales in moderately good body condition, and then the next lightest gray is the proportion of whales in moderately poor body condition, and then the lightest gray is the proportion of whales in poor body condition. And so we have these 3 years on the 1990s to the left, and those aren't sequential, but we just wanted to group all those together to sort of represent the 1990s. And then we have sequentially from 2005 to 2023 across on the right side. And that red box there is to represent the marine heat wave that occurred from 2014 to 2016 during California. And so we found that body condition scores did vary significantly with year. And we can see that in the 1990s, those black bars are a lot bigger. So there's a much larger proportion of whales that are in good body condition and moderately good body condition. And we kind of see over time those darker black bars, there's a smaller and smaller proportion. And the smallest proportion of whales the largest proportion of whales in a poor and moderately poor body condition occurred in 2015, which was during that marine heat wave. And then the kind of second highest proportion of whales in moderately poor and poor body condition occurred just directly after that heat wave. Okay, and then this is just looking at the same data grouped across decade. So we can see in the 1990s, there's a much larger proportion, or there appears to be a larger proportion of whales in good and moderately good body condition. And then in the 2010s, which is during when that heat wave occurred, we can see that reflected through the higher proportion of poor and moderately poor body condition. And these body condition scores did vary significantly with decade as well. Okay, so this is here looking at season. So just want to note real quick that this does exclude data from Mexico. And we have from early season to late season, and this was statistically significant across these seasonal groups. So in the early season, what we're generally seeing is there are fewer whales in good body condition and moderately good body condition, and that tends to increase with season, which is kind of what you would expect, but it's always cool to actually see what you would expect reflected in the data. So essentially, we're thinking that as these whales are coming into the highly productive area of the California current, they are able to then build up that blubber that helps them throughout the rest of the year. So looking at these trends over time, there was a declining trend in good body condition score, which is that top left panel, with increases in every other score category. So the score 1, which is the top right panel, score 2, which is the bottom left, and score 3. Okay, so broadly thinking about all of this, most sightings within the study occurred along the coast of both Southern and Central California during those months of June to September. And we have seen a northward shift in blue whale distribution since the 1990s. So apparent changes from year to year in blue whale body condition could be due to the appearance of different individuals during photo identification efforts. Uh, and again, these results really highlight the importance of summer feeding off of the US West Coast, particularly in that California current region for the ENP blue whale population. Okay, so looking here at our models, uh, this is including all of the covariates that we tested without the environmental covariates, and I'll go into that next. But we can see that the top model here included the rep class, which is the lactation status, so is a lactating female, a calf, or other. Month group, which is seasonality, and then best quality, which is uh, the best quality of a photograph of a from a sighting, and then best proportion, which is similarly the best proportion of an individual from a sighting with year and ID as random effects. And so this top model, the most parsimonious model, did include seasonality as a covariate. So we sort of felt more confident in saying that seasonality does have an influence on body condition with these results. And then I also have here highlighted in italicized here. This is the model from Rachel's paper. So we can see that there's some different results with new data, which is always exciting. Okay, and then looking at these environmental covariates, we can see that the two that came out on top with the strongest influence of body condition score were the habitat compression index and the oceanic Nino index. So as I mentioned, the incorporation of seasonality significantly improved the ability of this model to explain variations in blue whale body condition score. And thinking about these environmental covariates, there are shifts in humpback whale distribution and changes in associated prey species, so being krill and northern anchovy, have been observed and documented to correspond with the habitat compression index. So this makes sense when we think about blue whales, that these changes in their associated prey species would impact their body condition. And then lower krill catch per unit effort during El Nino years has been documented compared to La Nina years. And so again, we can see this sort of interplay between predator and prey as predators may have sort of worse years, or there's years where there's maybe not such dense aggregations of prey species. There's going to be associated changes in body condition of blue whales. Okay, and so here are our top three survival models, and look at this to get a little better idea of what's going on. So throughout this time period of our data set, so from 1991 to 2023, we did see an overall decrease in survival. And so this, ideally, we would have liked to include body condition within these models, but the data are sparse, and even within the survival analysis itself, it's really difficult with uh, these large and long-lived marine mammals to get a good estimate of survival, because we're not seeing these individuals every year, and it may be 20 years between sightings. So it's really hard, but we are seeing this sort of decrease and a concurrent decrease as well in body condition. And while we can't say that they're necessarily correlated, we can just say that these are happening at the same time. And it's an interesting pattern to observe. So the survival estimates suggested a small decline over time from 1991 to 2023. This could be driven by animals dying or permanently emigrating from the population. And looking at other marine mammals, poor body condition has been correlated with reduced survival in both killer whales and gray whales. And individual declines in body condition could additionally serve as a stressor to the population with sort of potential long-term impacts. So even if this decline in survival may not be directly linked to body condition, we can still think about, okay, if the overall body condition of the population has decreased over time, that is going to put these animals more at risk to other stressors. Okay, and then looking here at resighting rates. So regardless of body condition, whales were equally likely to be resighted within that recapture period. We do see a bit of a relationship though with, um, although not statistically significant, uh, in that score category of 0, there's a sort of a general decline in the resighting rate, moving on to a 3. But again, it can be difficult to sort of pick out this pattern when we're not necessarily seeing these individuals every single year. Okay, conclusions. So overall, this research displays the value of archival film and digital imagery. It was really awesome to get to see some of these older photographs and basically bring them to life, and incorporating them into this long-term study. And it really makes you think about how much data are out there just waiting to be analyzed. And so I really encourage anyone uh, who has access to a data set like this to use it and look at that old data, because it can tell us a lot about these animals even today. And overall, blue whale body condition varied throughout the study period with a general decreasing trend since the 1990s. And we were able to link it to fluctuations in environmental drivers such as the Habitat Compression Index and the Oceanic Nino Index. And body condition did tend to improve throughout the period described in the literature as the feeding season, so from June to November, within that California current region, which I'll again just restate, really highlights the importance of this region for blue whales. We also documented concurrent declines in body condition and survival. And while we can't necessarily say that there is a decrease in body condition that is leading to a decrease in survival, we are seeing these trends at the same time. Um, so that is something that we should pay attention to. And ideally, moving into the future, hopefully we can get better data on body condition that will sort of help to um, better pick out whether these trends are real, or and the ultimate sort of impact of this potential decline in body condition. And understanding the links between environmental variation, anthropogenic disturbance, abundance estimates, and body condition will be essential to continue to monitor and manage this blue whale population. The sensitivity of blue whales in poor body condition to both ecological and anthropogenic disturbance should also be further explored. So, as I mentioned, when we think about marine mammals and how sensitive they are to these changes in their environment, if a blue whale is is in very poor body condition, that could subject them to these other stressors in their environment. And so we need to think about this on a population level and why this is important for their management. And there's also this potential for the addition of aerial-based imagery that could kind of serve as this validation method for this more subjective measure of body condition. And so that actually ties into some of the next steps in our research. So um, kind of moving forward from this project, the next thing we're looking at is using some archival aerial imagery, which Cascadia has from the 1980s, so 1986 and 1988, and then also some from the Southwest Fisheries Science Center in the 1990s and early 2000s. And so we want to use essentially these image analyses, this image analysis softwares that are readily available, and to analyze some of these older images, and then also use commercial drones now that they have become a lot more available and smaller and easy to bring on research cruises. Uh, we want to sort of, again, explore some of these longer term trends. And we're working on finalizing our UAS measurement protocol, UAS being unmanned aerial systems or unoccupied aerial systems, to analyze this data set. And we also were able to obtain quite a few images of blue whales, both from above and from the side, during that 2024 field effort. And so this will serve to kind of ideally, we can validate this more subjective measure of body condition with a more objective measurement-based measure of body, with a more objective measurement-based uh, way to assess body condition. And I have included this little video here um, that was captured by Hannah Clayton during that field effort of a blue whale and a calf. So ideally, we'll be able to look at both images and screenshots of videos to analyze the body condition of these animals. Um, okay, well, I would like to thank everyone at Cascadia. I would like to just give a shout out to Alexandra Vanderzee for her help during my internship. And I would also like to thank my mom for her inspiration and uh, to pursue my passion and her dedication to protecting the environment for future generations. And here's my references and any questions.
Great, Jessie. Yeah, we have a few questions. So, and I have to say, I think you certainly have given us quite a glimpse into research methodology, which is really exciting too. So, all the work behind your conclusions. So, yeah, let's dig into the questions. So, a lot of good data that you presented. So I think some of this, I know I might be asking some questions as well that are going to be you're going to have to review. But just for starters, can you review again how blue whales are identified?
Yeah, so here I'll just go back
Yeah.
presentation to this initial image. So they're identified through these modeling patterns on the lateral photographs, which is why this method of body condition assessment was really awesome because all of these photographs were already taken throughout 30 years or so, and they weren't necessarily intended to be used for body condition assessment, but we already had them because that's what we use for photo ID.
And you're looking at their dorsal fins, right? I mean, as well as their body conditions and
Yeah. So the general shape of the dorsal fin and then the modeling pattern for photo ID.
and one of our community members, Sherry Goforth, is just asking for photo ID of blue whales to confirm the right lateral is the preferred view.
Uh,
And
so oh sorry.
yeah, and if a photographer has ENP blue photos, I don't know what ENP means, but should they be submitted to Cascadia Research Collective?
Yeah, so you can probably just reach out to John and shoot him an email, John Calambokidis, if you could just go on the Cascadia website. And yeah, if you have images that we could use, that would be awesome if you're willing to share them. And yeah, the left or right lateral um, side of the whale is preferred for photo ID.
Do you also, use photos from Happy Whale, or was it pretty much just the Cascadia
Yeah,
collect?
yeah. For this analysis, it was just the Cascadia images, um, and so that could be something in the future too, is
Mhm.
expanding that to other images from other contributors. But really, just wanted to focus on the images within our database.
Okay. All right. And then some questions on, more of your understanding of the whales. Like, for instance, Susan Sherman asked, do you determine whether a blue whale is lactating or a female based on having a calf nearby? Because I think you said that did you say that you eliminated lactating females or?
Yeah. So for some parts of the reciting rate, we excluded lactating females. So yeah, the way that's determined is basically just from the from when a female is sighted with a calf, they're considered a lactating female for that season, essentially.
And then did you follow any of the calves for, future seasons and things? Were you able to, or maybe you couldn't identify them? I mean, I guess you could have done even more studies out of all these, out of these photos.
Yeah, it's tough because with the lactating females and the calves, I think, we only had a few. There was only a handful of them throughout the whole data set, and like I said, there's a really low reciting rate. So I think there was probably reciting of some, but not of a lot of them. And a lot of times you might see that individual once and then never see them again.
And this is a good question from Judith Howard. Why were with the score of 3, why were those whales excluded from the study? With the 3 was the poorest body condition.
Oh, so sorry that I might have misspoke. So the threes that we excluded from the analysis were images that were given a quality score of 3 or a proportion seen score of 3. So not that they were given a poor body condition score, but that the actual image quality wasn't acceptable to include in the analysis. So the image could have been, only a small proportion of the whale was maybe seen, like just the dorsal fin, but you couldn't actually see the rest of the body, or it was really blurry or taken from really far away. So we just wanted to use the images that were of the highest quality.
Okay. All right. And then getting back to more about the whales, our board member Anne Marie asks, were you able to determine if, the age of any of the whales, according maybe even to body condition or, you know, I guess was there any potential ability for age correlation?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really difficult with these long-lived species. So, the only way to for sure know the age of an individual is if you've seen it from a calf, and then been able to follow it from there. And we do take biopsy samples and can get estimates of age through those. But yeah, there was no way to really there's no true way to be sure, and especially since we're kind of looking more at the population level, um, we're not necessarily sure about the age of a lot of these individuals.
Is the body type condition score applicable to other whale species as well?
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned in the introduction that Rachel actually adopted this scoring mechanism from, I think, gray whales and North Atlantic right whales. So, and I think there's also it's applicable to fin whales as well. So, yeah, it definitely can be used for other large whale species.
There's there were 3 initials that reflect the technology of, what did you call it? Unmanned aerial.
Oh, yeah.
What?
The UAS, yeah,
Yeah,
unoccupied aerial system.
UAS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, presumably that is probably going to bring a lot of the ability for new techniques and actually new standards like the body condition methodology that you used, I suppose.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now this is from Mary Jane, MJ Schramm. What is the marine vi Vibriosis project? Which strain of Vibrio do they host?
Oh, so that marine size. So it's a sound exposure um, experiment essentially. So just looking at the impact of sound exposure to sort of blue whale behavior.
What would it mean? Which strain of Vibrio do they host? Is that a
I think they're talking about like a microorganism, but yeah, not looking at microorganisms, but looking at sound. Looking at it's a acoustic study, so
oh,
essentially,
okay, that's what the marine vibriosis project is.
yeah, marine vibrosi project.
Vibrocy, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, I think she said concerned about zoonosis, which I guess.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, this concerns krill from Richard Chips. Seeing krill on the grocery store shelves, do you think humans may be affecting the abundance of prey available to blue whales as well as other species? And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I know for sure. I would have to look into that more, but humans have definitely impacted the ocean ecosystem as a whole, whether that's directly through the removal of species or indirectly through things like climate change. So, yeah, I mean, humans have definitely had an impact on prey species. Thinking about krill, whether that's indirectly or directly. But yeah, I can't necessarily speak to my knowledge of uh, humans actually or people impacting krill populations in terms of fishing, but for sure we can we can think that krill
yeah.
have impacted.
We, we're going to have Ted Cheeseman speak in September. And he's done a lot of work down in Antarctica, and I think that will be a good question to bring up because
Yeah.
I feel I think it is an issue. So thank you
Totally.
for that question. And staying on krill, one of your judgment factors was the CPUE, the
Hmm.
catch per unit of krill. And that was a question. Can you speak a little bit more about that and how important that density is? And then you seem to relate it to the El Nino or La Nina, I think. So maybe you could speak a little bit more about that variable.
Yeah, yeah. So if I can go back to the models here. So let's see, that's here. Um, Yeah, so the model here that included the catch per unit effort of krill wasn't necessarily the top model when we look at the environmental uh, the variables that impacted body condition.
Mhm.
But we can still sort of make this connection that these environmental factors are impacting prey, and the relative CPU is just essentially a measure of um, krill for that year. And it can be difficult because a lot of these factors kind of impact each other, especially with the environmental indices. Uh, but yeah, so looking at this, we can say for sure that the habitat compression index is kind of coming out on top as having like the most impact in body condition. And thinking about why that would be, we would think that it would be probably because it's impacting krill, but it can be difficult to kind of sparse some of those details out.
Well, would that relate to temperature, water temperature, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it relates. So the habitat compression index is essentially it's a measure of upwelling, and the sort of like amount of upwelling. And so if there's more habitat compression, there would be in general like less available uh, sort of suitable habitat or less upwelling within that year, and so there'd be more compression. Whereas if there's less compression, there would kind of be like more habitat, probably more upwelling, which we would expect to see greater accumulations or densities of prey. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Okay, and a couple questions related to the area of study. Uh,
Mhm.
First of all, what exactly, how do you define the Costa Rica dome?
Yeah, so that area wasn't necessarily included within the study, but I believe it's just an area of water kind of off of the coast of Costa Rica. So that's where these individuals are going down to. But we mostly focus our efforts just essentially off the U.S. West Coast, with Mexico included in some of the analyses, but essentially just kind of focusing off that U.S. West Coast region.
So less about Alaska. Did that?
Yeah, we didn't have any sightings up that far north. The furthest north sighting, I think, we had there were some in Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fellow board member Mark Weber, who I think you know, thank you so much. And then please expand on the findings of body condition of blue whales in the Gulf of California and their relationship to blues in the rest of the ENP.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we didn't necessarily focus on that area. So I can't speak to body condition. I did mention the decline in survival that Georgina reported from 2024, and likely just due to the utilization of potentially different areas. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what body condition or how body condition would be reported there. But yeah, like I said, just kind of focusing off the U.S. West Coast with some sightings in Mexico, but mostly that U.S. West Coast region.
Got it. Okay, would you have any suggestions for whale watching captains for limiting disturbance when observing poor body condition whales?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think best practice is to just follow the guidelines for as far as captains, because if you can really see the body condition, you are probably might be too close already, because we're using telephoto lenses and then looking at them after the fact. And there's also the possibility that if a whale looks in really poor body condition, it could be a lactating female, because that's often the case with what we're seeing. So there might be a calf hiding around there somewhere. But yeah, I'd say, just best practices is to not disturb any whale as much as possible, because it's probably going to be hard to determine the body condition in the field.
Hmm. Yeah, I know Susan Sherman, one of our board members, was on leading as the naturalist for a trip to the Farallones in the last month. And I know one day there's been so much wind, so most of those trips have been canceled. But she said that one day there were like 7 blue whales all feeding. It was just a
Oh, that's
magnificent day.
awesome. Yeah.
So yeah. Um, Okay, and here's a good question, maybe fitting to as we conclude. Is there any way I can access the slides or any publication of this research?
Yeah, so we're planning to publish pretty soon. We're just kind of finishing up the manuscript,
Mhm.
and I can, Susan, I can send you the slides if anyone wants to reach out and get them, or I don't know if they can be posted somewhere.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I mean, it's just great to really delve into your work and have you walk us through it. So, yeah, we'd like to do that. I'm trying to think of how we would get it up, but if you would send it to me, or can put you in touch with anyone who
Yeah,
would be interested. So her name, I, Ar Artha Taya. Feel free to send your email and we can put you in touch as well with Jessie and get the slides. So yeah, anyone who's interested, shoot an email. Well, this has been fantastic, Jessie. What a way to, what an exciting project. And what do you think you're going to do next? I mean, obviously you've got to tie this up and get it published, which is so exciting.
yeah, yeah. The next step is looking at those drone images, and yeah, hopefully securing more funding in the future and getting to dive a bit more deeply into that. But yeah, planning on continuing working with blue whales for as long as I can. So yeah.
How many were there or I think you mentioned there's, or did I hear 2,000? That is the estimate. That's what you said.
Yeah, yeah, just under 2,000 individuals for the Eastern North Pacific population.
And at one time, before all of the whaling, I mean, is there any estimate of how many there might have been on the Pacific coast?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the consensus is that these whales have potentially sort of reached their carrying capacity. So the Eastern North Pacific population is doing well. There is a bit of discrepancy in some of the population estimates as to whether the population has sort of been increasing since the 1990s or decreasing.
Mhm.
But I think in general, the consensus is that they're doing relatively well. So that's good. But
Yeah,
we have to uh, we have to make sure we are attentive and keep
we should.
researching them in case anything does sort of come along and impact the population.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we are in the Anthropocene, as
Yeah.
you mentioned in your presentation. So, oh, and I just want to say that Anne Marie, our board member president, just said a note that she can put the slides in our next newsletter.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so good. We'll get this good research out far and wide.
Awesome.
And I'm going to save the chats for you because I love this one. Just happy that there are young, smart scientists that will carry on caring about whales. One of many. So a lot of good feedback for you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse, this has just been great. And, let's just leave it as to be continued and let's stay in touch. And whenever there's an opportunity, we'd welcome you to come back and speak to our community.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed getting to talk about my research and share a bit of my background, and yeah, good to talk to you all.
Good. Okay, well, to the audience, we'll be taking a break in July, but we'll be back in August with a really exciting speaker. And love to see all the hearts that are floating up in reaction. And thanks, everyone. Thanks again, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you again.
Okay, goodbye. Good night, everyone.